What is up, addicts? Welcome to the Fantasy Addiction Network. Thank you for joining me today. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button for more content like this. But I wanted to talk about arguably the most important position to get right in your fantasy leagues, the running back position. Strategy this year is actually pretty straightforward if you ask me. There's plenty of nuance to it, but we have really seen a structural shift back and forth, and it's kind of like the stock market, right? Like things change as the years go by. We get smarter as we get more data, and we saw over the course of the last decade there was a surge of wide receivers that had jumped into the point that it made more sense to go wide receiver early. There was kind of a talent gap in running back where outside of guys like Le'Veon Bell, there really weren't that many running backs that were actually performing at their position. But over the course of the last couple of years, wide receivers have continued to see more talented guys jump into the player pool, which just kind of brings down the overall ceiling of the players around them. Whereas running backs have become a bit more centric in the passing game in the NFL. A lot of guys, you get guys like Christian McCaffrey, Miles Sanders, Austin Eckler, Kenyon Drake, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, who are very involved in the passing game. And based on the way that fantasy points are scored, especially in PPR leagues, receptions are so much more valuable than carries alone that there become a lot more fantasy relevant running backs that perform drastically better over the course of the season on a week by week basis than the replacement counterpart of a guy that you would get later. Now, obviously, there's risk with every position, and running backs definitely carry a lot of risk. But as we've seen analyzing it, running backs, we have a miss rate, at least as far as ADP goes amongst analysts. We have a miss rate of about the same on running backs as we do on wide receivers. So wide receivers are not a sure thing. Last year, Odell Beckham and Juju Smith-Schuster were going in the back half of the first, early second, and both of those guys massively missed on their ADP. DeAndre Hopkins had, an up and down season, still finished pretty good. Michael Thomas obviously came back, performed pretty well, but you've got guys like Chris Godwin and Kenny Golladay, Allen Robinson, who were, guys that you got much later. So, the same principle applies with running back and receiver in that if you draft a guy early, it's not guaranteeing you that he's going to finish there. But at least with running back, we have a bit more security and stability of knowing that, like, if you draft, I'm trying to give a good example, if you draft Nick Chubb and he goes down, we know that Kareem Hunt is going to be forced into a much better role. Whereas if you look at a guy like DJ Moore, if DJ Moore got hurt, I don't know that Robbie Anderson is going to immediately take the position of getting as many fantasy points as DJ Moore. Running back is a much more replaceable position, but that does not mean that you should be fading running back, because if Derrick Henry plays a full 16 games again, you know he's going to return value at his ADP. If Joe Mixon plays 16 games, Miles Sanders, Kenyon Drake, if they play 16 games, they're not going to see their role drastically reduced unless they get hurt. And if they get hurt, that comes back to the concept of, should you handcuff your running backs? I know a lot of people say that caps your upside. To me, the strategy I typically take in redraft leagues is I like to take running backs that I'm sure have a strong role, are very talented in offenses that are going to be scoring a lot of points. And if they lose their role due to injury, I like to have their backup, because then I still have the same process as followed through. It's a good, productive backfield on a team that I know is going to score a lot of fantasy points at the running back position, and I don't lose that. Whereas with the receivers, I like to take high upside guys later on versus you can't really handcuff a receiver. All that being said, the way I see that this year is there are, I believe, 14 running backs here that you can see that are going in the first two rounds, starting with Christian McCaffrey and ending with Aaron Jones, Austin Eckler. I've been shifting those guys back and forth for a while. I feel like they're essentially the same in terms of the way that I view them in value. I want two of these guys. So if I'm drafting in the back half of the first round, I want Miles Sanders. I want Joe Mixon. I want Kenyon Drake. I want Nick Chubb. I want Derrick Henry. I want Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I want two of them. If I'm drafting in the middle, I'm taking a guy like Alvin Kamara, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or I'm still reaching on Miles Sanders here in the 5th to 8th pick. And then I'm happy with Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb, or Aaron Jones. in the second round. Where it gets a little trickier from a strategy standpoint is if you're in the first third of the draft, because typically most drafts I've done, Aaron Jones goes right before pick 209. So if you start with Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire at pick 4, the odds of you getting a running back in the second round is diminished. Now, in home leagues, crazy things happen. My bet is most leagues, you're going to see people reach on Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson in the back half of the first or early second. And that's good. If you have an early pick, you want that to happen because you want a shot at a guy like Austin Eckler or Aaron Jones falling to you if you have Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, or Christian McCaffrey. Because if you can lock down 2 running backs and one of them is one of those elite studs, like these 3 guys up here, that is the best possible start you can have. So if you have pick 5 to pick 12, the answer is easy. You're taking the 2 best running backs on the board, have a list of the way that you perceive them. You can use my rankings. I have the link in the description. They're free. Access that. I keep that updated throughout the offseason. But if you want to use somebody else that you trust more or just go with your intuition, that's fine. But my strategy, if I'm in pick 5 through 12, I'm taking the 2 best receivers or 2 best running backs on the board. And then in rounds 3 through 6, I'm getting 3 receivers and I'm going to grab 1 more running back. I want to start my draft, if possible, with 3 stud running backs and 3 receivers in this value tier that drops off after Devontae Parker in the 6th round. Only way I'm going to divert from that is if I end up reaching on Dak Prescott here in the early part of the 6th round. And if I do that, it means that I'm just punching the receiver position the next round. And instead of taking a guy like Devontae Parker, I'm going to take a guy like Marvin Jones or Jarvis Landry in the 7th round, which we talked about that in our quarterback strategy a little bit. And we'll also talk about that in the receivers. In terms of running backs, though, you really want to make sure you have 3 running backs within your first 5 picks. And the reason why I say that is I don't really like anyone beyond, except for maybe James White that you can get in the 6th round. J.K. Dobbins is not guaranteed a role. Mark Ingram has to get hurt for him to see massive production. Marlon Mack is going to be usurped by Jonathan Taylor very quickly. Jordan Howard and Matt Breida is a murky situation I don't really want to mess with. Antonio Gibson, I just don't trust Ron Rivera to give him the carries that he needs to be productive right away. And there's so many running backs there, Adrian Peterson and Bryce Love. Not really interested in him. Phillip Lindsay with Melvin Gordon there. No, thank you. Tariq Cohen was not very good last year. And the Bears as a whole, I don't think can support 2 running backs being productive. So unless David Montgomery gets hurt, which again, you don't want because Tariq Cohen isn't really someone you want getting a lot of carries. Tevin Coleman, I like taking Jerick McKinnon later. Then you start getting like handcuff backs, Latavius Murray, Alexander Madison. Kerryon Johnson is going to see his role diminished with DeAndre Swift there. Like this tier of running backs from like round, even like guys like Raheem Mostert and Mark Ingram, I'm still not on board with Ronald Jones, but I'm not actively against him anymore. I'm just kind of like staying away from him, not talking about him much anymore. There's not a lot of upside here with these running back picks that I would much rather just lock that position down early. And then once we get later in the draft, then you start stabbing at the lottery ticket guys. Grab a guy like Damian Harris who could see a significant role. Grab Chase Edmonds who would become a running back 1 if Kenyon Drake went down. Boston Scott be a running back 1 if Miles Sanders went down. Grab a guy like Anthony McFarland, or even later you can grab Benny Snell who would see a massive role if James Conner went down. Joshua Kelly's making splashes in camp right now. Jerick McKinnon making splashes in camp right now. You can grab a handcuff like Tony Pollard. Like this group of running backs, I'd rather have like 3 or 4 of them, because if one of them hits, boom, they immediately bring your roster from a good team to a great team. And because you invested early on running back, you now have another running back to go along with it. It becomes a really nice piece in a trade. Just having security at the running back position is hard to come by. And I'd rather start with that security rather than trying to work my way to it. And this is coming from, I've won championships with the 0 running back strategy where I haven't drafted a running back in the first 5 rounds. And I've won with that, but this is not the year to do it. Devontae Adams is the only receiver in my mind that has the potential to massively outproduce what he did on a per game basis last year and make it worthwhile taking him in the first or second round, he's the only guy that's going to make me pause on my strategy. But even still, I like guys like DJ Moore, Odell Beckham, Calvin Ridley, Robert Woods, AJ Brown, Amari Cooper, anyone that you can get here, Allen Robinson, Adam Thielen, in this third to fourth round tier. Much rather take two of those guys than run the risk of having to try to start with like a David Johnson or a Todd Gurley or a Leonard Fournette as my RB2. So to me, the running back strategy is pretty easy. If you're able to get two of these guys of the first 14 that go off the board, do it. If you can't, like if you're in the first part here, then your next bet is going to be punt and pray that in the fourth, fifth round, you can get one of the rookies. Either Jonathan Taylor falls to you the back half of the fourth, or you reach for DeAndre Swift in the fifth. Mark Ingram is interesting. I'm okay with taking Mark Ingram at the first part of the fifth. If you want more stability and security at the running back position, just know that J.K. Dobbins could usurp him as the season goes on. So you're going to have to be diligent and make sure that you lock down another running back either through the lottery picks or through waivers as the season goes on if you take Mark Ingram. But I'm out on Devin Singletary. I don't care much for David Montgomery. I like Kareem Hunt, but I'm not sure what his role is going to be with Kevin Stefanski coming in. And if Nick Chubb plays the whole season, you're probably not going to get value on Kareem Hunt. Love DeAndre Swift. I think he's going to end up being the main bell cow back there in Detroit because I don't trust Kerryon Johnson to stay healthy at all. And Matt Patricia is going to need to do everything he can to save his job. I think DeAndre Swift gives him a massive upgrade at that position. I think they're going to see that pretty quickly. Cam Akers is interesting with Darrell Henderson getting hurt. That would be another potential option here in the fifth round. But again, you can really see if you're drafting later in the first round, grabbing two running backs and then just taking one of the rookies or Mark Ingram is probably what I'm planning on doing. Only other guy I'm willing to kind of reach on in the sixth round would be James White. And even that I feel like is kind of it's not really an upside play. I think he gives you startability week to week and he's cheap enough that he should be going like right next to a guy like Kareem Hunt. But we don't really know how much of a role Damian Harris is going to play. If Sony Michel will be active, if they keep Rex Burkhead on the offense. So that one even has a little bit of risk. But then I'm basically avoiding running back for the next couple rounds with the exception of maybe grabbing Zach Moss in the 9th round. The rest of these guys, I'm just hardcore fading all of them. And then I'm just going to start loading up on guys like Chase Edmonds, Duke Johnson, Boston Scott, Damian Harris, Joshua Kelly, Anthony McFarland, Jerick McKinnon. Get like 3 or 4 of those guys and you're set. So that is my running back strategy this year heading into the season. If you guys want to see how I have my tiers laid out so you know what running backs I would be targeting over others, again, click that link in the description box. We've done player profile videos for all of the main fantasy players. You can check that out on our channel. We have the playlist there. I'll link that in the description as well. And we also have my guys series where we talk about the favorite people that we have by position. So check those videos out as well. And that's pretty much it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to what I have to say. Hit me up in the comment section with any questions, and I'll see you guys in the next video.